My name is Joseph, and I'm about to tell you how my grandmother destroyed her greedy family from beyond the grave. Joseph, honey, come sit with me, Grandma Helen said one afternoon about 6 months before she passed. We were on her porch, drinking lemonade like we'd done every Sunday for 20 years. What's on your mind, Grandma? I asked. She squeezed my hand. Your Aunt Margaret called again, third time this month asking for money. What did she want this time? A new car, a Mercedes specifically, Grandma said, shaking her head. She hasn't visited me in 5 years, but she knows my bank account number by heart. I felt my jaw tighten. What did you tell her? I told her no. Then she said I was a selfish old woman who should be grateful she even calls. Grandma's voice cracked slightly. Your Uncle Richard sent an email too, wanted $50,000 for his investment opportunity. He didn't even ask how I was doing. They're vultures, Grandma. They don't deserve anything from you. She smiled at me then, a strange, knowing smile. Don't worry, sweetheart. I've made arrangements. They're going to learn a very expensive lesson. That was our last real conversation. 2 weeks later, she had a stroke. I rushed to the hospital immediately. Where's Joseph? She whispered when I arrived. I need to see my Joseph. I'm here, Grandma. I'm right here, I said, holding her hand. She smiled. Good boy. Always visiting. Always caring. She squeezed my fingers weakly. My lawyer has everything. Trust him. Trust the plan. What plan? Grandma, what are you talking about? But she'd already closed her eyes, exhausted. She passed away 3 days later. At the funeral, the family vultures descended. Such a tragedy, Aunt Margaret said, dabbing fake tears with a designer handkerchief. I just spoke to her last week. We were so close. You called her for money, I thought, but didn't say. Uncle Richard grabbed my shoulder. Joseph, when's the will reading? Your grandmother had significant assets. We need to discuss the estate distribution fairly. Mr. Patterson, her lawyer is handling everything, I replied coolly. My cousin Derek piped up. I hope the old lady was smart enough to divide things equally. Family is family, right? Family is family, I repeated. We'll see what her wishes were. The reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Mr. Patterson's office was downtown in a sleek high-rise. Everyone's required to attend, he'd said on the phone. Mrs. Helen's instructions were very specific. The morning of the reading, I arrived early. Mr. Patterson, a sharp-eyed man in his 60s, greeted me warmly. Joseph, good to see you. Your grandmother spoke very highly of you, he said, shaking my hand. Thank you, sir. She was an amazing woman. He smiled cryptically. She certainly was. And clever, too. Very clever. What do you mean? You'll see shortly. Let's just say your grandmother's final act was one of poetic justice. He gestured to a chair. Have a seat. The others should be arriving soon. Within 10 minutes, the conference room filled with relatives I barely recognized. Aunt Margaret, Uncle Richard, Derek, my cousin Stephanie, Uncle Paul. 14 people total, all looking eager and calculating. The feeding frenzy was about to begin. They just didn't know they were the prey. Mr. Patterson closed the conference room door and locked it. The sound made everyone shift nervously. Why are you locking the door? Aunt Margaret asked. Mrs. Helen's instructions. Nobody leaves until we're finished, he replied, settling behind his desk. Now, shall we begin? Yes, please, Uncle Richard said, leaning forward. Helen had substantial assets. We're all eager to understand how she wanted things divided. Mr. Patterson opened a thick folder. Mrs. Helen's estate is valued at approximately $70 million. This includes real estate, investments, cash accounts, and business holdings. The room erupted in excited whispers. I saw dollar signs flashing in everyone's eyes. 70 million? Stephanie gasped. Holy! I mean, wow, that's incredible, Derek grinned. Split 14 ways, that's 5 million each. Not bad at all. Actually, Mr. Patterson interrupted, it won't be split 14 ways. Mrs. Helen was very specific about her beneficiaries. Aunt Margaret straightened. Of course, Richard and I, as her eldest children, should receive the largest portions. Then the grandchildren can share the remainder. Yeah, that's only fair, Derek added. Mr. Patterson's expression remained neutral. Before we discussed distribution, Mrs. Helen wanted me to read something. She wrote personal letters to each of you. He pulled out a stack of sealed envelopes. My heart pounded as he handed them out. Everyone tore theirs open eagerly except me. I opened mine carefully. The conference room fell silent as people read. Then Aunt Margaret's face went crimson. This is outrageous, she shrieked, slamming the letter down. How dare she? What does it say? I asked quietly. Mr. Patterson nodded to me. Why don't you read yours aloud, Joseph? I cleared my throat. My dearest Joseph, you have been the light of my final years. Your weekly visits, your genuine love, your care when I was sick, you asked for nothing and gave everything. I love you with all my heart and I trust you with my legacy. That's sweet, Uncle Richard said impatiently. But what about the money? Read yours, Margaret, Mr. Patterson suggested. Her hands shook with rage as she picked up her letter. Margaret, you called me 15 times in the past year. 14 of those calls were asking for money. Once you asked how I was feeling, then requested $30,000 in the same breath. You haven't visited me in 6 years. You didn't come when I had pneumonia. You are greedy, selfish, and cruel. You get nothing. The room exploded. This is illegal, Richard shouted. She can't disinherit her own children. Actually, she absolutely can, Mr. Patterson said calmly. Mrs. Helen was of sound mind. I have psychiatric evaluations, video testimony, and witnesses confirming her mental competency. Read yours, Richard, I said softly. His face had gone pale. He read silently, then crumpled the letter. She said I treated her like an ATM, that I only cared about her money, not her life. Derek, Mr. Patterson prompted. My cousin stood up. She said I called her a senile old hag when she refused to pay my credit card debt. I was joking. She knew I was joking. The joke's on you now, I muttered. Stephanie was crying. She said I told my friend she couldn't die soon enough so I could get my inheritance. But I was just venting. Everyone says stuff like that. No, Stephanie, they don't, Mr. Patterson said coldly. Mrs. Helen had cameras installed in her home 3 years ago. Motion-activated voice recording cameras. She documented everything. The color drained from every face in the room except mine. You're lying, Uncle Richard said weakly. Mr. Patterson pressed a button. A screen descended from the ceiling. Would you like to see the footage? I have 90 hours compiled. Margaret calling your mother a stubborn witch when she wouldn't co-sign a loan. Derek stealing $400 from her purse. Richard telling her she was a burden who should go to a nursing home. Stop! Margaret screamed. We don't need to see it! So where does the money go? Uncle Paul asked quietly. He'd been silent until now. Mr. Patterson smiled. Joseph received $68 million. The remaining $2 million goes to various charities your grandmother supported. The rest of you receive exactly what you gave Helen in her final years, nothing. The conference room descended into chaos. This is bullshit, Derek shouted, slamming his fist on the table. We're contesting this will. She was obviously senile and Joseph manipulated her. Contest away, Mr. Patterson said smoothly. But understand this, Mrs. Helen anticipated your objections. She had 4 psychiatrists evaluate her mental state over the past 2 years. All concluded she was sharp, competent, and clear-minded. Aunt Margaret pointed a shaking finger at me. You poisoned her against us. You isolated her. You're a manipulative little snake. I visited her every Sunday, I said calmly. I brought her groceries. I took her to doctor's appointments. I sat with her when she was lonely. When's the last time any of you called just to talk? Not to ask for money, just to see how she was? Silence. That's what I thought, I continued. You want to call me manipulative? I loved her. You loved her bank account. Joseph's right, Mr. Patterson said. I have phone records. Margaret, you called 32 times in 5 years. 29 calls were requests for money. Richard, you emailed 16 times. 15 were about loans or investments. Derek, you visited once in 6 years and you stole money from her purse. You can't prove that, Derek snapped. Mr. Patterson pressed another button. The screen showed Derek in Grandma's living room, looking around nervously before approaching her purse on the counter. He glanced toward the hallway, then pulled out her wallet and took several bills. Time-stamped, dated, crystal clear, the lawyer said. That's theft. Mrs. Helen chose not to press charges while alive, but Joseph, as executor of her estate, could pursue legal action if he wishes. Derek went white. You wouldn't. Try me, I said coldly. Try to contest this will, and I'll bury you in lawsuits. Theft, harassment, elder abuse. Elder abuse? Uncle Richard scoffed. That's reaching. Mr. Patterson pulled out another folder. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is elder abuse under state law. I have documented evidence of Margaret requesting $185,000 over 5 years. Richard requested $240,000. When denied, both of you berated, insulted, and threatened Mrs. Helen. We never threatened her, Margaret protested. Margaret, you told her you'll regret this when I put you in the worst nursing home I can find, I said, my voice shaking with anger. I was there. I heard it. That's a threat. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. Uncle Richard stood up. Fine. We'll get our own lawyers. We'll prove she was coerced. You'll waste your money, Mr. Patterson interrupted. I've been practicing estate law for 35 years. This will is airtight. Your mother made sure of it. She spent 2 years building this case, documenting your behavior, gathering evidence. She wanted you to know exactly why you're getting nothing. Why would she do this? Stephanie asked tearfully. We're family. Family? I stood up now. my voice rising. You people treated her like garbage. You called when you needed money and disappeared when she needed you. I held her hand in the hospital while she died. Where were all of you? We didn't know she was that sick, Uncle Paul said quietly. I sent a group text, I replied. You all read it, I know you did. It showed red receipts. Margaret texted back asking if Grandma had updated her will recently. That's it. That's all you cared about. The room fell silent again. Mr. Patterson gathered his papers. You have 30 days to contest the will if you choose, but I'm warning you. Mrs. Helen left me a $500,000 legal defense fund specifically for fighting challenges. You'll spend your own money fighting a losing battle, or you can accept reality and move on. This isn't over, Aunt Margaret hissed, grabbing her purse. Oh, but it is, I said. Grandma made sure of that. They contested the will, of course. Greed makes people stupid. 3 months later, we were back in court. They'd hired an expensive attorney, some shark from a big downtown firm. Your Honor, their lawyer began. We'll demonstrate that Mrs. Helen Castellano was unduly influenced by her grandson Joseph. He isolated her, manipulated her, and coerced her into disinheriting her own children. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked skeptical. Counselor, I've reviewed the evidence. Mrs. Helen had multiple psychiatric evaluations confirming competency. What's your basis for these claims? Joseph visited her constantly, Your Honor. Weekly visits, sometimes more. He had excessive access and opportunity to manipulate her. Mr. Patterson stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff's argument is that loving someone and spending time with them constitutes manipulation. By that logic, any devoted family member could be accused of undue influence. Meanwhile, the plaintiffs barely contacted Mrs. Helen except to request money. We have phone records, emails, and security footage documenting years of financial exploitation. I'd like to see this footage, the judge said. For the next hour, the courtroom watched my relative's worst moments. Margaret screaming at Grandma for refusing a loan. Richard calling her selfish and stupid. Derek stealing money. Stephanie complaining to her friend that the old bat won't die already. Aunt Margaret was crying by the end. Not from remorse, from embarrassment. The courtroom was packed with people, including several reporters. Your Honor, their lawyer tried desperately, emotions run high in families. These isolated incidents don't prove— Isolated? The judge interrupted. Counselor, I've just watched 90 minutes of consistent abuse, exploitation, and manipulation by your clients, not the defendant. The plaintiffs contacted Mrs. Helen almost exclusively for money. They insulted her, stole from her, and threatened her. Meanwhile, Joseph visited weekly, helped with her medical care, and asked for nothing. Where's the manipulation? He was playing the long game, Richard muttered. The judge's eyes narrowed. Mr. Castellano, did you just accuse someone of manipulation for genuinely caring about another human being? Is it so impossible for you to believe someone loved your mother without wanting her money? Richard, shut up. Motion to contest the will is denied, the judge declared, banging her gavel. The will stands as written. Furthermore, I'm ordering the plaintiffs to pay all of Mr. Joseph's legal fees. Your frivolous lawsuit has wasted this court's time. They had to pay $180,000 in legal fees. Mr. Patterson was expensive, but he was worth every penny. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Joseph, how do you feel? One asked. Relieved, I said honestly. My grandmother was an amazing woman who deserved better than she got from most of her family. I'm grateful she trusted me with her legacy, and I'll honor her memory by using this inheritance for good. Will you reconcile with your family? Another reporter asked. No, I said firmly. They had years to treat her with love and respect. They chose greed instead. My grandmother's will wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. She wanted them to understand that relationships matter more than money. Unfortunately, they still don't get it. Aunt Margaret tried to approach me afterward. Joseph, please, can we talk? I'm sorry for everything. Maybe we could work something out. No, I interrupted. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught and sorry you're not getting any money. There's a difference. I'm your aunt. We're family. Family is earned, not inherited, I said. Grandma taught me that. Goodbye, Margaret. I walked away and never looked back. Today, I manage Grandma Helen's $68 million estate. I've set up scholarships for nursing students, funded senior centers, and donated to causes she cared about. I think of her every day, and I keep her photo on my desk. She didn't leave me money out of revenge. She left it to me out of love. And she made sure the people who hurt her understood the consequences of their cruelty. Have you ever dealt with greedy family members who only showed up when they wanted something? What would you have done in my situation? Like, and subscribe for more stories about people who refused to be victims and fought back the right way.